Hey, how's it going? Um, yeah, something I've been thinking a lot about lately is how how lonely and isolating I feel. And this is living in a city surrounded by people and even with, very supportive friends and family. And maybe they're not as close proximally as they used to be because it seems like in the middle age, people sort of move out into the suburbs and, families and priorities. Um, but I still find myself feeling isolated and lonely, disconnected. And something I've been doing some writing on. And, um, you know, I, I think as we move on through life and we make decisions, um, if we're not true to ourselves, what happens is we get, or what I find is that I feel like I'm getting disconnected from myself. And that can come through your professional life, your relationships, um, because when you start to abandon your own intuition and your knowledge, and you start trusting others for reasons, whatever they may be, um, and you stop trusting yourself, I think that's when we really find that we're going to move away from our true selves. And this has been really difficult because in a lot of the sort of teachings, right? It's all about coming back to yourself and finding your orientation back to your true self. And I think that's something that everybody is going to go through at some point, and I'm certainly on that journey right now. And it's really difficult, you know, because you feel disconnected from others, even though you might very well be, connected to them, phone calls, text messages, even seeing people in person. But if you're disconnected from yourself, who's really showing up, right? And I think there's that lack of alignment. Um, if you're disoriented from who you are at your core, I think it can be really difficult to be with others, and that shows up in, maybe not wanting to have the social time that you knew used to fill your cup, because you've stopped knowing how to be around people truthfully. Uh, and I don't know if that's to do with, just showing up and being vulnerable. I think it's there's deeper work than that. It's really around, you know, how do we reconnect back to ourselves so we can develop stronger relationships with the people that are already in our life, or reconnect with the people that are already in our life. And yeah, it's certainly something that I've been thinking a lot about lately, and I don't necessarily know the you know the answer. Um, I think going back and understanding what beliefs we've created uh, in our life are, and if they are actually aligned to who we are and where the beliefs came from. Um, Something sort of comes up for me around, this idea of self-care. And it's like, what is self-care? Like, people always talk about that self-care, self-love. Um, I think it's giving yourself what you want and not giving yourself something that you shouldn't have. But I think it's being true to yourself in what's important for you. And maybe what's important for you, or what you actually want in life, doesn't align with the core beliefs that you've developed over the course of your life. And when you can find that intersection, or where those paths are, where have they started, and where do they sort of connect, um, it can be a really interesting place to look. Um, and maybe that's why self-care and self-love is so hard, because if you're feeling disconnected from yourself, it's like maybe you want something but it doesn't align with your beliefs. And then I think you have to go back and say, like, is this something that's good for me, and do I really want it? And also, where did this belief come from? Um, and I've done a couple things recently where I've sort of gone against my own beliefs or ideas about how I should be in the world, because I was making myself wrong for wanting something. And it's actually brought me a lot of joy, uh, sort of understanding. It's like, okay, like that belief, maybe that's, maybe that was something that was, inside of me. It certainly wasn't developed from me, because it's not actually in alignment with who I am, and what I wanted is in alignment with who I am. So it was really interesting to sort of see that dichotomy and then make a decision based on what I wanted. And then, I had the feeling of alignment to be like, sort of shake my head. Why didn't I do this earlier? And I found, that's been a way of reconnecting with myself. And so I'd love to continue to understand how I can do that. Um, Everybody always wants the feeling of like being a kid again. And, I think something I really understand now, it's like the reason it's so different, it's because we have so many experiences in our life that we've gone through, by the time you're 20 or 30 or 40. Um, and the severity of those, of course, are going to vary, but, all of these just layer on. And like that, that feeling of an innocent kid is, I think, really hard to attain. And it's also, that innocent kid is who we are at our core. So it's being able to process the experiences and the beliefs that have come out of those experiences, and what we've made them mean. Because when we can peel back that layer, I think we're one step closer to reconnecting with ourselves, and being able to, be more available and open to connecting with others, which ultimately, supports, um, us not feeling lonely or isolated anymore. Because, I've definitely spoken to a lot of friends and people that I know, and that there is the general feeling of just feeling lonely and isolated, even though we're like hyper connected and, living in a city. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. And yeah.